Okay guys, this is going to be a different slide for you guys. It's a slide where we're going to be paying more attention to the RBC, the erythrocytes, than we are going to pay attention to the manual differential. You can already see, I'm not even in the golden lock zone, this is too sparse zone, but you can already see there is something different about this slide, and it regards color. You have some cells that are much more blue than average, and so there is a variation in color in this slide. You can already see it, a variation in color. As you know, it's called polychromasia. There is also a differentiation in size. We're not going to look into size so much now, because to look into size you actually need a mature lymphocyte. You can have an inkling that something is going to be mattering later on, that there is something you want to pay attention to, but you're not going to make a estimation of the cell size if you don't have a reference point. So let's find a area where you are more comfortable. So too light, too dense, that's not what you want. Oh, there is some dark thing floating there. And it's going to be around here. I'm going to set my counter. Get ready, set, go. Definitely there is some anisocytosis in here, difference, and there is some polychromasia. Neutrophil, should go lighter. Basophil. I want to see if I can set a better focus in here so you guys can see. But with the basophil, you have a very, very dark nucleus. Those nucleus superimpose the very, very dark granules. Those granules superimpose the nucleus. And that's a very typical finding how a basophil looks like. I'm gonna tell you, this slide's a little older. With the stainings that I'm seeing right now, you often seeing the basophils being a little bit less characteristic than this. You still see the beady, globular, and to see if something is globular, remember, you want a 3D picture, not a 2D picture of it. And to get a 3D picture, you actually have to move around the micro focus, because otherwise you don't have depth perception. Also helps a little bit when you have a binocular microscope, because then you have a triangular view of the cell. On a mononuclear, on a monocular microscope, and the video, it's actually, you don't have bivision. It's a little bit more difficult for you to see 3D if you have a monocular microscope, or if you're doing this, what I'm doing, which is trying to do the view through the camera. It's a little bit easier for you to see those, but I'm trying to play with the micro so you have time, and I'm posting this so you have time to see the cell and go back and forth on this video. So you have a basophil, let me count it, and then there is a neutrophil, Mature lymphocyte. Mature lymphocytes, a good reference point. You can see there is a level of macrocytosis actually here. If you're going to actually see if this person has microcytosis or macrocytosis, this is a macrocytosis. Some of those cells are actually much bigger than the mature lymphocyte. And you have some cells that are little spheres. There is a degree of spherocytosis in here. You also look at the platelets. The platelets look good. You have a few platelets that look a little bit agranular, but most of them have a good purple level of granules inside of them. I see granules in most of them. They're healthy, the number is good. So I'm not concerned about it, even though I know this person is anemic, is not anemic enough that the erythropoietin is rising, and that erythropoietin, remember, is so very similar to thrombopoietin that oftentimes a person with high levels of erythropoietin will have increased platelet production because the bone marrow gets those mixed messages and starts making more megakaryocytes. Neutrophil, definitely a lot of polychromasia, a lot of spherocytosis. Lymphocyte. It becomes a little bit more difficult to judge that you are in the golden lock zone. When you have an anemia like that, the cells don't like dispersing so very well. 2 neutrophils we counted, 1 lymphocyte. Another neutrophil. I'm not gonna even pay attention to that cell. It's a lymphocyte, guys, but there is a line that's going through it. I don't know if you can see that there is a scratch on the slide. I'm not gonna count it because I don't like counting laboratory artifacts, okay? And you have a line going through the cell. I'm not the one to count it. Monocyte. Lymphocyte, neutrophil, lymphocyte, neutrophil, lymphocyte, monocyte, lymphocyte, neutrophil, lymphocyte. Those mature lymphocytes are really mature, really dense. Neutrophil. I know this person has spherocytosis. Monocyte. But I'm gonna tell you, those lymphocytes are dense enough that I am wondering if this person is not at the verge of developing a leukemia. Sometimes those very dense lymphocytes are you see those in CLL. I'm not saying it is, because the percentage is not there and the number is not there, but darn, they are dense. Neutrophil, neutrophil, neutrophil. I don't want to count that lymphocyte that's cut in half. It's a lymphocyte that's cut in half. I'm not going to count, guys, because really, I hate counting destroyed cells. Because you start going with your imagination and seeing cells that don't belong, okay? This is a monocyte. I'm going to try to go more towards the edge of the slide. Because those cells, this is a monocyte, gray color, lacy. Again, another one, lacy. Trying to get more light to you. Lacy nucleus. So this one even have some vacuoles. You don't always have vacuoles, but a vacuole is a good indication. I'm trying to, as again, with those, oh, look, aha, this is an important one for you guys to see. Neutrophil, and see that? Not a lymphocyte. That is actually a nucleated RBC, a nucleated erythrocyte. How do I know? Look, the nucleus is very condensed. It's eccentric to the cell. It's at the edge. The spleen really wants to pit this. Probably not pitting it because this person might not have a spleen anymore. It's very common that patients that have spherocytosis do not have a spleen. So either because you have a lot of anemia and the erythrocyte production is increased, you might end up looking at nucleated cells in the peripheral blood. But how do you tell that's what they are? Look at this cell and then look at 3 o'clock. There is another red blood cell that is exactly the same color. Remember what I was talking about the polychromasia? This looks like a nucleus that is really inside a cell that I called your attention as polychromasia. That's exactly what it is. It's a cell that's inside, it's a nucleus that's inside a RBC. The cytoplasm of a lymphocyte looks much different than a polychromatic erythrocyte. So here we had 2 neutrophils and 1 nucleated. If your instrumentation makes a discount for nucleated, will you just skip that cell? You do not count. If you have an old instrument that does not make count for nucleated cells, you might want to count this cell because you need to know what percentage of nucleated cells are, because you need to subtract that from your WBC total count. Otherwise, your WBC total count is going to be artificially inflated because old instruments that are not able to make the differentiation between a nucleated cell will just count those as if they were WBCs. So let's continue counting. Lymphocyte. Lymphocyte. neutrophil, lymphocyte, neutrophil. Let's see this neutrophil. This neutrophil here is a band. The cytoplasm is not segmented yet. Eosinophil. I wish my contrast was a little bit orange. I'm gonna be honest with you, in my microscope it looks much more orange than it does in the video, at least on my camera view. I hope in the computer view it's a little bit better. But look at the aviator glasses nucleus. This is a very, very good tip you off. This cell is an eosinophil, and then you look into a 3D perspective of the cell and you see that the granules are beads and not sand. They're much larger, and you can make that estimation that this is an eosinophil just based on that line, okay? Monocyte, neutrophil, 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 lymphocyte, neutrophil, neutrophil, lymphocyte, neutrophil, lymphocyte. I don't know, that cell exploded. I'm not gonna count, guys. The membrane is burst. I'm not gonna even look at what it could have been. It's gone. Lymphocyte, 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 neutrophil, 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 lymphocyte, monocyte. It's a monocyte, and then there is a platelet right underneath. That's not a blister on the monocyte. It just has a platelet there, just close to it. It's not part of that one cell, okay? A lot of monocyte, and this monocyte's really pretty, has vacuoles. Not every monocyte has, but one thing that's good, when you see a cell that is very characteristic like this, is that you can use that to guide yourself to the coloration of other cells you might want to be looking at, okay? Meaning, you can see this cell, and this is a characteristic monocyte. You look at other cells if you're in doubt if this is a monocyte or not, and say, okay, now I know exactly how in this slide, in this specific tip, this the monocytes are coloring, and this is what gray looks like on this exactly slide. You can also see the cell has some sand granules in it. Very difficult to see. It's so very little. Very, very difficult to see. A lot of people don't ever look at the cell and say, oh yes, there is some granules in there, even though there are, okay? Monocyte, did I count it? lymphocyte. Okay, those are two eosinophils. Aviator glasses and beady. On my slide, I can actually see the orange. I'm very sorry for you guys, you can't on this, but you can see the beadiness, and you can see that there is some stain. Nucleated RBC, I'm not gonna count it. Neutrophil lymphocyte. Neutrophil, neutrophil. That's a lymphocyte, a meta, which is a little bit thicker than a band, and a monocyte. Neutrophil, 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 neutrophil. Oh, I'm back to that, so let me try to find another area. Neutrophil, lymphocyte, neutrophil, neutrophil, getting dense in here. A band, neutrophil, monocyte, neutrophil, nucleated red blood cell, nucleated red blood cell, neutrophil, lymphocyte, neutrophil, 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 exploded cell, neutrophil, 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 lymphocyte, lymphocyte. It's a monocyte, it's just folded in there. I'm trying to see if you guys can see it. It is folded in itself. It does have some vacuoles on about 1 to 2 o'clock. This, I'm gonna try to give more space between the cells and the neutrophil. Sometimes, as I said, the cells can, it's a traumatic experience for the cells to be squished in a slide. So not all cells are going to be looking like a textbook. Sometimes they get squished, sometimes they don't have the exact characteristics you're looking for. But that's a pretty good example of a patient with spherocytosis, and I'm gonna post that, you guys, so you can go back and forth and see over and over again.